All right, so in the previous video, we revisited this programming pattern over here to actually get an array of reference types and also the integer counter to see how they work together. I already did a detailed illustration, but it's also very important for you to finish the written notes and together with the illustration. That will be the most effective for your learning. I'll leave the study to you. If you got any trouble, please let me know. And this part is really the console application that we discussed. Remember, we discussed them in two parts. So this will be the first part where we simply just try to add the 4 points into the point collector. And this was the second part that we did about calling this particular mutated method get points in Trojan 1, right? That's what we did previously. All right, let's now go to the next topic. And this part over here is about how you can use the library class called Arraylist. We are not going to discuss the Java API library classes until the second, maybe the last 2 weeks for the semester. So I would suggest you can safely skip the slide 54 and also slide 55. You can definitely skip these two slides for now. I'm going to revisit these two slides later in the final 2 weeks when I speak about Java API library classes. But if you're interested, feel free to actually pre-study them and also put them into Eclipse and try them out. But it's not required. I'll revisit them later. Okay, and then the next topic will be anonymous objects. Anonymous objects simply means objects created in the memory, however, without their addresses being stored in any named variables. That's basically what anonymous objects really mean. To really make some analogy, can you just compare this block of code over here versus this block of code over here, the left and the right over here? Can you see the difference? There's no object creation over here, but it's really about using expression. All right. Hopefully you thought about it, right? The answer is, you can see here, we are simply returning x times x, which means this particular expression here is simply used without storing its value in some intermediate variable. On the other hand, for the left-hand side, you can see we store the result of the expression value x times x inside this local variable. And then when we return, we simply return whatever that's stored in SQR, the square root, the square. That's really the difference. And you can think about, for anonymous objects, it's going to be a similar idea. So what we did previously was, whenever we want to create a new object, we'll say, for example, member, and then m, and then it's going to be some new keyword on the right-hand side, right? But instead, you can also just return the new expression directly. So that means you're returning the object's address without that address being stored anywhere else in some name variable. That's basically the intuition for anonymous type. Let's see example. I don't need to do any illustration for anonymous type. It's quite straightforward. You just have to watch out for the syntax. Let's see this. If you now see the left over here, the left hand side is analogous to this left hand side over here. The right hand side over here is analogous to the right hand side over here. Let's take a look. You can see for the left hand side, we are simply creating a new object over here on the right hand side here, right? We are creating a new object person and then store its address into the named variable p. And then we simply return whatever address that's stored in p. What we can do instead is to simply say we want to return the address of this particular object, right? But we don't really store the address anywhere else. We just return that address directly, right? So that's the difference. And you can see that's exactly what I just meant, what I just said. So you can see this particular right-hand side, it is a valid expression of type person. Whatever constructor you're using, that will actually determine the type for the expression. So this expression here is basically an object of type person whose address is not stored in a variable. You can simply use it directly. Just use the object's address directly. Okay, you can read the notes. That's exactly what I just illustrated over here. This just understand the difference between left and also the right. Let's see more examples. So where can you use anonymous object? You can use it as assignment sources over here. So assignment sources is basically what we're using here. You can think about this part over here is really creating an anonymous object. But now we decide to store that into this particular variable p. So that's one use as the assignment source. And the other use would be as argument values. That's something I'd like to show you quickly, right? I'm just giving you another example over here. So member here is not really the member for fitness club, like what we did in the tutorial videos. Think about the member here as like a member for a coffee shop. So you want to join as a member for some coffee shop, right? We got an array of orders, assuming that the order is a class that we created elsewhere, maybe with the price and also the units, and also product name, like a coffee or latte, and etc. And the number of orders. So the way the array variable over here working together with the integer counter here will be exactly the same as the point and point collector. So I don't need to repeat the pattern, right? You already studied the pattern thoroughly. And then we can say we want to add the order over here, right? You can simply this pretty straightforward. You know how this works. I don't need to waste your time. And then we have another one here. You can see add order, right? And for this one here, we simply supply as the arguments the necessary information for you to create some order objects, right? You can see in the first one, it's expecting some order objects. But now, the overloaded method here, we are passing sufficient information for you to create internally inside the method, the objects. So what we're doing is we're saying this.addOrder. And now this.addOrder is basically calling this particular version of the method. And now rather than simply creating this object and store that in some name variable and pass the name variable as an argument, rather than doing that, we're just passing the anonymous object directly, right? You can see syntactically, it's not really it's nothing new for you to learn. All you gotta remember is you can simply use the new expression here to specify the object without its address being stored elsewhere. Okay, so you can see this line here is simply equivalent to I can store this. I can basically store this address. I can basically put this as a right-hand side, right? I can simply say this new object is being the address of this object is stored into this position over here, right? And then increment NO plus plus. That's basically why we want to minimize the code duplicates by calling this method over here, like a helper method. That's also something we explained in the tutorial video, week number 8, about helper method. You can refer to it. All right. Final example. You can see here, let's say we talk about main method console application. So let's say we have a member M with the name Alan. And also we have an order over here. You can think about we are using anonymous object here as the source of the assignment, the right hand side of the assignment. Store the address of this anonymous object into some variable name over here, so we can refer to O. You can see this is one way to go. You can definitely store the address of the objects into some variable and pass the variable around. That's one way to go. Or you can simply say, now rather than passing some variable here directly, indirectly, I can pass the object's address directly by using anonymous objects expression, right? You can see this line over here and this line over here, they are basically calling the same version of the method, which is over here. The same version, which is add order, expecting some order objects. But now in this case over here, we are passing the name of the name of a variable which stores the address of this particular object. So this is some named objects. It's not anonymous. On the other hand, this one here, we are passing directly the anonymous object's address over here as the arguments. Right? That's the difference. All right, the anonymous object topic is pretty simple. You just have to know how to write it syntactically over here. It's not really required, just sometimes it will be very convenient for you to do so. So you don't really have to create extra variable names to really store these addresses. So use them when you think that's appropriate for your application. All right, so let's now go on to the next topic. So we're going to see a more advanced use for the this keyword.